Imagine waking up tomorrow to breaking news. The United States has launched a ground invasion of Iran. Sounds intense, right? Well, that's because it would be. In an age of precision airstrikes, drone warfare, and cyber campaigns, the idea of putting boots on the ground in a country as complex and well-defended as Iran is staggering. You're not just talking about a few targeted hits, you're talking about a massive, sustained military operation against one of the most strategically positioned, heavily fortified nations in the Middle East. This isn't just academic theory. Tensions in the regions have spiked recently. Iran fired missiles at US bases in response to US and Israeli strikes. At the same time, a fragile ceasefire between Iran and Israel appears to be holding, at least at the time of this video. If that ceasefire collapses entirely, the chance of an escalation involving US ground forces might have looked more real. Still, situations like this show just how quickly things can spiral and why invading Iran doesn't fit the Iraq or Afghanistan playbook. So today, we're digging into why invading Iran would be one of the toughest military operations America could attempt in the modern era. We're talking geography, supply chains, urban combat, military resistance, and how all of it stacks up compared to the 2003 invasion of Iraq. It's a deep dive into strategy, logistics, and hard realities. But before we dive in, if you find this kind of breakdown useful, hit that like button, subscribe, and maybe drop a super thanks to support this channel. Every bit helps keep this content going. So let's get started with something you can't change: geography. Iran isn't just another Iraq. It's nearly 4 times the size, and the terrain is a nightmare for anyone trying to move an army through it. You've got massive mountain ranges, wide deserts, and narrow passes that are perfect for ambushes. Picture tanks and convoys trying to wind their way through tight mountain roads with enemies watching from above. Every mile would be hard fought. And it's not just the land itself, the climate adds another layer. Central Iran has brutal summers that wear down troops and overheat vehicles. Getting through that would be slow, frustrating, and expensive in terms of both gear and morale. And remember, the defenders would know the land inside and out. They've trained there, they live there, and they've spent decades preparing for the exact kind of scenario we're talking about. Getting to the front lines isn't as simple as loading up a few planes or ships. In Iraq back in 2003, the US military had the benefit of staging operations out of Kuwait. That gave us secure supply lines and a close jumping off point. With Iran, the map gets way trickier. Most of the surrounding countries like Iraq, Turkey, Afghanistan, and Pakistan aren't exactly lining up to let us use their territory. And that leaves us with very few friendly launch pads. So how would the US even get there? That question alone is a huge challenge. Without reliable land access, any major operation would likely need to come from the sea. But an amphibious assault on Iran's coastline? That's not just a logistics issue, that's a nightmare. Iran's coastal defenses include anti-ship missiles, swarms of fast attack boats, drone surveillance, and naval mines. Trying to land troops under those conditions is asking for heavy losses right out of the gate. This is where Millennium Challenge 2002 becomes important to talk about. In that war game, which simulated a country similar to Iran, the enemy used unconventional hit-and-run tactics to devastating effect. Within minutes, 19 US ships were sunk, including an aircraft carrier, 10 cruisers, and 5 amphibious ships. Those amphibious ships were loaded with Marines, and the scenario estimated over 20,000 US personnel lost in a matter of minutes. The results were so catastrophic that the Pentagon reset the exercise and changed the rules mid-game just to continue. It wasn't just a simulation gone wrong, it highlighted how quickly things can unravel when you face an opponent willing to fight dirty, adapt fast, and exploit every vulnerability you didn't prepare for. And while it's true that nearly 25 years have passed since that war game, with major advances in technology, intelligence, and doctrine, the core warning still holds up. A high-risk amphibious entry into a hostile and prepared environment like Iran could still lead to heavy losses before a single beachhead is secured. And we're not just talking about getting there. Keeping the force supplied once it's on the ground is another mountain to climb. You've got to feed, fuel, and protect tens of thousands of troops in hostile territory, all without a secure land route. If something goes wrong with air or sea resupply, weather, enemy attacks, whatever, you've got a force that's stuck and vulnerable. That kind of fragility is exactly what Iran would exploit. And all of this underscores a sobering truth. It's not just about fighting once you get there. If you can't get your troops in safely and keep them supported, then everything else falls apart. Now, let's talk about the cities, because Tehran is no Baghdad. It's 3 times the size, packed with millions of people, dense neighborhoods, huge buildings, and layers of underground infrastructure. Fighting in a place like this is brutal. Every building becomes a possible ambush site. Every alley could hide explosives. Every civilian could either be caught in the crossfire or turn into a resistance fighter. We've seen how bad things can get in places like Fallujah and Mosul. Tehran would be much, much worse. And don't forget, Iran has had years to prepare for this. You can bet they've reinforced key areas, set traps, and mapped out where to fight from. You're not just clearing neighborhoods, you're in a maze of sniper nests, bunkers, and civilians. That kind of fighting drains morale fast and turns short missions into long, grinding campaigns. Another big difference between Iran and Iraq in 2003 is the strength and mindset of the military. The Iranian Revolutionary Guard Corps, or IRGC, isn't just a military branch. They're a force that's been tested in conflicts all over the region: Syria, Iraq, Lebanon, Yemen. They've got experience, tech, and a deep playbook of tactics. They're experts in asymmetric warfare, and that means they're not going toe-to-toe in open battles. They'll use drones, missiles, and cyber attacks. They'll hit where we're weak, disappear, and hit again. Add in the fact that they have proxy forces across the Middle East, and you're not looking at a fight that's just inside Iran, but spread out across multiple countries. We can't ignore what just happened recently. Iran launched ballistic missiles at US bases in the region. That's not just a warning shot. It's a reminder they're willing to strike and escalate if needed. It also shows they've got the range and accuracy to reach US troops across the Middle East. Now, think about how the world would react. Back in 2003, the US had some allies. Whether or not they were fully on board is another debate. But with Iran, most of the world would likely oppose it. Countries like Russia and China would take advantage politically, maybe even support Iran indirectly. Even US allies in Europe might push back. And then there's oil. The Strait of Hormuz sees a fifth of the world's oil flow through it. If that gets shut down or disrupted, prices shoot up, economies slow down, and public opinion turns fast. Back home, support would likely fade. After decades of war in Iraq and Afghanistan, Americans are tired. The idea of starting another long, bloody conflict wouldn't sit well, especially if things go sideways early. So, let's wrap this all together. The invasion of Iraq looked easy at first, fast-moving troops, quick victories, but then the insurgency kicked in and things got ugly. That war dragged on for years and cost thousands of lives. Now apply that same playbook to Iran, and everything is harder. It's a bigger country, there's a stronger military, more motivated people, tougher terrain, and a government that's not just political, but religious, with deep control over every part of society. And remember how Iraq fell apart when the US disbanded the Ba'ath Party? Iran's version of that is the IRGC, and they're way more than that. They run businesses, control ports, and hold political power. You can't just cut them out and hope things settle down. We're also talking about a population that's both larger and more ideologically united than Iraq was. A large portion of Iran's population may dislike their government, but when foreign troops are involved, that tends to unite people fast. National pride kicks in, resistance gets fierce. So yeah, a ground invasion of Iran would not be a repeat of Iraq. It would be something else entirely, something longer, something bloodier, and something far harder to walk away from. So, do I think the US military could pull this off? Yes, I do. Technically speaking, the US has the ability to invade almost anywhere in the world. The military power, logistics, and technology are all there, but that's not the full picture. Winning battles is one thing, winning the peace afterwards, that's something else entirely. Even if US forces made it past Iran's defenses and pushed into the heart of the country, they'd be staring down a long-term fight that touches every corner of Iranian society, holding cities, keeping supply chains intact, fending off regional proxy attacks, and avoiding the appearance of becoming an occupying force. All of that is a completely different kind of mission, and there's no clear endgame. We also have to consider public opinion. After Iraq and Afghanistan, as I stated earlier, the American public has little patience for prolonged, messy wars. The support might be there in the first few weeks, but then when casualties rise, costs spiral, and global opinion runs sour, those things can change quickly. That's why even discussing a ground invasion of Iran makes military planners sweat. You can have all the hardware in the world, but if your objective isn't crystal clear and your exit plan isn't airtight, it's a setup for disaster. At the end of the day, this isn't just about who's got the bigger military. It's about consequences, cost, and whether the mission even makes sense in the first place. That's why conversations about invading Iran don't go far. Not because the US can't, but because almost everyone knows how quickly it could turn into a disaster. So, thanks for sticking with me throughout this one. If you got value from it, give it a like, subscribe if you haven't already, and if you want to support what we're doing here, please drop a super thanks. Every little bit helps keep this content alive. Until next time, this is Learning Military. Stay informed, stay sharp, and stay ahead. Thanks for watching.